All right, so get this. We're diving into a murder mystery this time.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
Yeah, the case of Mandy Rose Reynolds, and get this, a dog actually plays a huge role in solving it.
Wow, okay. I'm intrigued. I love dogs.
Yeah, me too, but this isn't your average dog story. We've got news reports, court documents, even some animal behavior analysis to try to unpack this.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
So picture this, Robinson, Texas. It's a stormy night, rain's coming down hard, hail even, sideways even.
Sounds rough.
The police, they think they're responding to a brush fire, right?
Yeah.
But they find a body.
Oh, wow.
And there's this white Labradoodle there, barking like crazy, wouldn't leave the area. The officers on scene even talked about grabbing a microchip reader from the fire station.
Just to ID the dog.
Exactly. It was that bizarre.
It really makes you think, though, like that dog knew something was wrong.
Right. It's almost as if he was trying to, signal the police or something, trying to lead them somewhere.
Well, that's where animal behavior in those kinds of situations, trauma, it's really interesting. Think about it. A dog's world really revolves around, routine and their owner.
Sure.
When something disrupts that, their behavior can change, drastically, right? They could get really agitated, try to protect their owner, or even try to get help. It's fascinating, really.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So the officers do eventually track down the owner through the microchip, right?
Right.
They call the number on file, and a woman who says she's Mandy answers.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really, really weird. Her story just doesn't add up.
How so?
Okay, so she says she's driving to Wichita, Kansas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she also says her dog ran off at a rest stop hours ago in Waco.
Wait, so she's in one place and the dog's in another?
Yeah, and it gets even weirder. The detective on the case, he picks up on all this right away, all these inconsistencies. And as he starts pressing for more details, Mandy gets really defensive on the phone.
That's not good.
No, she's avoiding questions, getting flustered. Her story keeps changing.
Classic signs of deception, right? Those red flags that tell you someone's hiding something.
Exactly. And guess what? Mandy wasn't Mandy at all.
Oh, wow. Who was it then?
It was the victim's cousin, Derek, impersonating her on the phone.
Whoa, talk about a plot twist.
Right? So the police, they head straight to Mandy's apartment in San Marcos, and it's totally empty. Her car's gone too. But the police aren't giving up. They use those license plate readers.
Those are pretty handy, I've got to say.
Yeah, and they track her car all the way to Wichita.
Oh, wow, so they're on as a trail.
Yep. Sadly, though, they confirm the body is Mandy Rose Reynolds.
Oh, that's awful.
The autopsy is, well, grim. She was shot in the head, then her body was set on fire.
Get on fire.
Yeah, inside a plastic container. And they find a spent shell casing inside it, too.
Jeez, the brutality of that. It just points to, a really personal motive.
Right. This wasn't random at all. So now the manhunt for Derek intensifies, culminating in this crazy high-speed chase through Wichita.
Oh, no.
He ends up crashing the car, then runs into a grocery store, tries to hide.
Hide in a grocery store? That's a bold move.
They eventually catch him, and they run his info, and oh boy.
What is it?
Assault, weapons charges. His criminal history is a mile long.
Wow. This really makes you think, all that info, just a background check away.
Doesn't it? It's like, how well do we really know the people in our lives, And should we be able to access this kind of information so easily? It's a big question.
Huge question. I don't know if there's an easy answer to that one.
No, not at all. So the trial starts, and the evidence against Derek, well, it's just mountain high. The gun, security footage, his attempt to flee, it's all there.
No way he's getting out of this one.
Nope. The jury only deliberated for 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Geez, that's barely enough time to decide what to eat for lunch. They must have been totally convinced.
Right. They had zero doubts. In the end, Derek's sentenced to life in prison. But amidst all this, there's this one heartbreaking detail. Remember Titan, the dog? He was there at the crime scene the whole time, refused to leave Mandy's side.
Oh my gosh, even in death.
Even in death. It's incredibly sad, but also beautiful in a way,
I know what you mean. It speaks volumes about the bond between humans and animals, even in the face of something so awful, Titan's loyalty never wavered.
It really is amazing. A GoFundMe was set up in Mandy's honor to help care for Titan.
That's great.
So here's something to think about. Knowing that someone's past, like their whole past, can be revealed with a simple search. How does that change how we trust people, how we form relationships? It's a big question, right?
It's a massive question, and one I think we need to think about more and more as this kind of information gets easier to find. But, before we get too deep into that, I think we need to go back to the story and pick up where we left off.
Okay. Yeah, good idea. So it's crazy to think how easily accessible information can be, like a double-edged sword, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, we often think background checks are all about safety, but this case really throws a wrench in that, doesn't it?
Big time. And it seems like Mandy's kindness was just like totally taken advantage of.
Yeah, in the most horrific way, really. And, as they investigated, it turned out that Derek had been living with Mandy at her apartment.
In San Marcos?
Yeah, for a few days before the murder. They even found security footage of him buying a bunch of stuff that was later connected to the crime.
What kind of stuff?
A gas can, a shovel, and one of those big plastic containers.
Oh, wow, that's creepy.
Yeah, it's a chilling reminder that you never really know what someone's true intentions might be.
Heartbreaking to think she opened her home to someone who would do something so awful.
Yeah, and the crime scene itself is, well, the details are pretty disturbing. They think Derek shot Mandy in the head, right there in her apartment.
In a right apartment.
Yeah, then he drove her body all the way to Robinson.
And Titan was with him that whole time.
It seems like it just shows how desperate he was to get away with it, I guess.
And remember, he even tried to trick the police, pretending to be Mandy on the phone.
He definitely thought he could outsmart them.
But he underestimated them. All those lies, all those inconsistencies, it all fell apart.
Yeah, in the end, it led straight to him.
Let's talk about the trial, though. It must have been so intense for both families.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine the courtroom, the tension, both families trying to process everything, the weight of the evidence, the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, it's hard to even fathom.
And think about the jury, too, having to sort through all that evidence, knowing their decision means so much. And for Mandy's family, having to relive all of it, it must have been excruciating.
And the jury took only 30 minutes to decide, right?
30 minutes, that's nothing. Speaks volumes about how strong the evidence was against Derek. They had no doubts.
Yeah, the evidence was overwhelming. The gun, the footage, Titan being there.
It all added up, right? And Titan, even in the face of that tragedy, his loyalty to Mandy, it's remarkable.
Really is. In a lot of ways, he helped bring her killer to justice just by being there.
Exactly. It's one of those stories that shows you, like, the best and worst of humanity all at once. The betrayal, the loyalty. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, makes it wonder, why would Derek turn on Mandy like that, especially after she helped him?
It's strange, right? They never really figured out a motive, did they?
Not that I know of, which makes it even more unsettling.
Absolutely. I mean, someone being capable of that kind of cruelty, to a family member, no less. It's hard to comprehend.
It really makes you think twice about who you trust, How do you stay compassionate, help people, but also protect yourself?
Right. Finding that balance is tough. This case shows us that danger can be anywhere, even with people we think we know.
Definitely emphasizes the importance of trusting your gut, being aware and taking steps to stay safe.
Absolutely. We can't always know what's going to happen, but being informed, being prepared can help.
It's about being proactive, isn't it? Taking steps to protect ourselves, but also recognizing we need to work together to create a safer world.
Right. It's a group effort. We need communities, law enforcement, everyone working together.
Absolutely. Building a truly safe world, it's a huge task, but every little bit helps.
Yeah, even small changes can make a difference.
This case really shows how challenging it is for law enforcement, investigating crimes that span across different areas, different jurisdictions.
Yeah, the coordination between agencies, it's crucial. You need everyone on the same page, local police, federal agencies, you name it.
It's a lot to handle, and they did a great job piecing it all together, tracking Derek down, bringing him to justice. Shows their dedication, their expertise.
Definitely. We sometimes forget the pressure those folks are under, the challenges they face, all to keep us safe.
It's easy to criticize that we should really be thankful for the work they do.
Yeah, it's all about mutual respect, understanding between the law enforcement and the community. That's how we build a safer, more just society.
Absolutely. We may not always agree on everything, but we can still work towards the same goals.
Exactly. We have to acknowledge that there might be problems, things to improve, but most law enforcement officers are dedicated to doing the right thing. We need to remember that.
It's about finding common ground, right? Working towards a future where everyone feels safe and protected.
Exactly. That's the kind of world we should all be striving for.
And this whole background check issue, it's tough, right? On one hand, it's good to be informed.
Yeah, definitely. It helps people make informed decisions, protect themselves.
But then there's the privacy concerns, the potential for discrimination.
It's a balancing act, isn't it? Safety versus privacy. It's not easy.
How do we make sure that information is used responsibly, ethically? How do we protect people's rights?
It's a big conversation, and it's one we need to have as technology keeps advancing, right? We need to make sure our values are reflected in how we use this kind of information.
It's on all of us to think critically about how we use powerful tools like that.
Yeah, technology can be amazing, but it can also be misused. We have to make sure it's used for good.
And this case really highlights the mental health aspect too, you know?
Oh, for sure. The link between mental health and crime, it's complicated, a lot of factors at play.
We have to address the root causes, like mental health struggles, and offer real support to those who need it, right?
Absolutely. It can't just be about punishment. We need to focus on rehabilitation, actually helping people.
People deserve a chance to turn things around. And mental health services, that's key to reducing crime, helping people live better
We
lives.
need to be more compassionate, more understanding. Getting rid of the stigma around mental health issues, that's huge.
Right. It's about creating a society where people aren't afraid to ask for help when they need it.
And that's where policy comes in, right? Making sure quality mental health care is accessible and affordable.
It's an investment in the well-being of everyone, really.
Exactly. When people are healthier mentally and physically, everyone benefits.
And we can't forget the community aspect, Public safety, it's not just on the police.
Yeah, we all have a role to play. It's about working together, citizens and law enforcement, to keep our neighborhoods safe.
Neighborhood watch programs, community policing, communication, it all adds up.
It's about being aware, being vigilant, letting each other know when something seems off.
Right. And letting the police know, too.
It's about taking ownership, being responsible for our communities.
Even small things like being observant, talking to your neighbors, it can make a difference.
It really can, and those small actions contribute to a bigger sense of safety for everyone.
It's a reminder that we're all in this together, Building a safer future, it takes a collective effort.
That's a message we should always remember. We may not always agree on everything, but working together, that's how we move forward.
And this case has definitely given us a lot to think about. The impact of readily available information, mental health, the role of community and law enforcement. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is, and it's all connected, It's not just about one thing. It's about understanding how all these factors influence each other.
Yeah, and it's a lot to process. But, in the face of all this, seeing how resilient people can be, it's kind of inspiring, right?
It is. It really is. It shows that even in the darkest times, there's always hope.
Yeah, it really is. And, it reminds us that even though we can't prevent every bad thing from happening, we can try to create a world where these kinds of things happen less, right?
Exactly. We can work towards, a world where justice, peace, and protecting innocent lives are like at the top of our minds.
Yeah, that's definitely a vision worth fighting for.
It is. It's about remembering that even in the worst times, we can find hope in how strong people can be.
This case, though, it's just so sad on so many levels. Everyone who knew Mandy said she was, just full of life, creative, generous. She had so much ahead of her.
It's hard to believe someone could do that, Like, sometimes evil hides in plain sight. It's hard to see it coming.
You're right. Derek broadly tricked Mandy, making her think he needed help to get back to Texas, taking advantage of her good nature.
It's a good reminder to be careful, Even with people we think we know, it's not always easy, especially when you're naturally trusting and want to help.
It's awful to think that being kind could lead to something so terrible. It makes you question everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about trust, about how we form relationships when you can't always tell who's being genuine.
Speaking of trust and loyalty, how about Titan? Did he, end up okay after everything?
He did, thankfully. Remember that GoFundMe?
Mm,
Some of that money went to making sure he was taken care of. He ended up with a great family, people who know his story and can give him all the love he deserves.
I'm so glad to hear that. After everything, he deserves all the good things in life.
He does. Titan's story is like I don't know, like a symbol of hope, Animals are so resilient. Even after trauma, they can heal and be happy again.
It gives you hope, right? Even in the darkness, there's always a chance for things to get better. Love and compassion can help you through anything.
And sometimes, our pets, they're the ones who get us through, right?
They remind us of what's important, the simple things in life. This whole case, it really shows how unexpected life can be.
It does, and it reminds us to never lose hope, even when things are hard.
So, looking back at everything, what can we take away from this, from Mandy's story? What have we learned?
I think it comes down to a few things. First, we need to pay attention, trust our gut feeling. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it.
Tony Doe, yeah. And like Titan, we can't forget animals often sense things we don't.
Right, like he knew something wasn't right, and he tried to warn everyone. We should pay attention to those signs.
We have to remember Mandy, too, how kind she was, always willing to help. Even though she's gone, she could still inspire us.
Absolutely. She reminds us to be open-hearted, but also to be smart, protect ourselves.
And we can't forget about justice, making sure those responsible for hurting others are held accountable. That's so important.
It is. Justice shows our commitment to, upholding the law. It's a part of healing for everyone involved.
It's a long process, but it's worth it. So that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the case of Mandy Rose Reynolds. We covered a lot of ground today, some tough topics, animal behavior, investigations, the ethics of information. It's complicated stuff.
It really is. A lot to think about, no easy answers. But exploring it, I think we all learned something, right?
I know I did. It's a reminder that the world can be a confusing, unpredictable place. It's important to stay aware, stay vigilant, but also stay kind.
If you're interested in learning more, Go Mandy's story or donating to that GoFundMe, we'll put some links in the episode notes.
And like always, we encourage you to keep learning about these issues, talk to each other, keep the conversation going.
Knowledge is great, but, empathy, compassion, that's how we make the world a better place.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating case. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.
And remember, even when things are dark, there's always light to be found. It might be in unexpected places, but it's always there. Yeah, 1 2.8 uses